the verdict should not be decided by an administrator. It should be decided by scientists working on the data from 3i Atlas. And one of the shortfalls of this particular press conference was that no scientists that analyzed the NASA data were included. It was officials from NASA. And moreover, what the message the officials conveyed was that it's a boring object. It's an object similar to the comets we're familiar with, except it came from a different environment. That is not the case with 3i Atlas. In fact, it has 12 anomalies that were not even discussed during the press conference. For example, its size. It's 1 million times more massive than the first interstellar object. This is the third one, and it's 1 million times more massive than the first one. There is not enough rocky material in interstellar space to accommodate the delivery of such a big package over the past decade that we monitor the sky. And it lies in the plane of the planets around the sun. That's amazing that, the chance of that is 1 in 500. That's only the second anomaly. If you combine these two anomalies, the big mass of the object and the trajectory that it has, it's already a chance of 1 in 100,000. And it raises the question of whether this trajectory was designed by some intelligence. And I just did a calculation this morning. You are the first one to hear that the object will come closest to Jupiter on March 16th, 2026. And it will arrive exactly at the right distance to Jupiter, to within a small fraction of a percent, exactly the right distance, where the gravity of the sun will not be able to tear apart any probe that it releases near Jupiter. So it arrives just at the right distance so that Jupiter's gravity will overcome the sun's tidal gravity, and anything it releases there will stay there, which suggests, why did it arrive exactly at that distance? In order perhaps to release some probes near that planet.
Aristarchus, Copernicus, Galileo, Sir Isaac Newton, Louis Pasteur, Edward Jenner, Charles Darwin, Albert Einstein, Edwin Hubble. What do all these men have in common? Well, a couple things. First, they each made one or more of the most important, most invaluable discoveries in the history of human scientific inquiry. Second, they were each shouted down as cranks and heretics by the mainstream scientific authorities of their day. Which brings us to the matter of the interstellar object 3i Atlas and Dr. Abraham Loeb, Avi to his friends, of Harvard University. Dr. Loeb says we shouldn't be automatically dismissive of the possibility that 3i Atlas is an object whose speed, course, and trajectory are the result of external agency by intelligent beings from some extrasolar civilization of whose existence we on Earth are still unaware. He hasn't made any definitive claim to that effect. He hasn't announced any final conclusion that says it's aliens, case closed, but that hasn't stopped the mainstream scientific authorities from shouting him down as a crank and a heretic, from reacting to his analyses with anger and hostility, and from trying to get him canceled as a member of the astronomical community in good standing. Meanwhile, if you've seen this topic come up in your social media feed, then you're already aware that in wide swaths of the general public, the conclusion is, yep, it's the alien mothership, no doubt about it, the government's hiding the real evidence, it's a big damn conspiracy. But what if the real answer lies between the one extreme and the other? What if 3i Atlas is a natural object and an artificial object? It's Wednesday, the 26th of November. This is Curmudgeon's Corner. From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where we have got the Delta V if you've got the propellant. Good afternoon, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Happy Thanksgiving Eve. Welcome to Curmudgeon's Corner. Let's talk about Avi Loeb's evidence and give him a fair hearing. I'm going to be heavily referring to a paper he published late last week on his Medium page, which I will link in description, in which he lays out the observed anomalous properties of 3i Atlas and ranks them in ascending order of probability compared to what we should expect to observe based on our previous study of cometary bodies. He opens with the list of what he calls major anomalies with no simple explanation, whose probability he rates in ascending order from 1 in 25,000 to 1 in 500. We will deal with them one at a time. Number 1, the forecasted perijobe distance of 3i Atlas during its encounter with Jupiter on March 16, 2026 is 53.44 million kilometers, identical to Jupiter's hill radius, 53.5 million kilometers. This match was enabled by the non-gravitational acceleration that 3i Atlas displayed near perihelion. This rare coincidence might mean that 3i Atlas intends to release technological devices as artificial satellites of Jupiter, potentially at Jupiter's Lagrange points L1 and L2 at the Hill radius where orbital corrections and fuel requirements are minimal. So what he's saying here is, when it was making its closest approach to the Sun, 3i Atlas accelerated by non-gravitational means that are not well understood and made a course correction that would result in encountering Jupiter at the exact edge of the Jovian Hill radius, which is the point at which Jupiter's gravity will influence its course and speed, but it won't be captured in orbit. For an easy analog, think of the free return trajectory that Apollo 13 used to get home from the moon more quickly. They called it a gravitational slingshot in the news media back in 1970, and that's basically what it is. You approach the moon at a certain speed and a certain distance, and the lunar gravity swings you back around in the other direction, headed back toward the Earth with a bit of added velocity. I'm not crazy about the idea of dropping satellites into Jovian orbit. That's a bit too esoteric and speculative for my taste, and maybe that's Dr. Loeb's fun little way of making his critics gnash their teeth and rend their garments. Who knows? But it seems more likely to me that, assuming for the sake of argument that 3i Atlas is being consciously controlled, the close approach to Jupiter is designed to produce a gravity assist and a change of direction. It's the same thing we always use Venus for when we launch probes to the outer solar system. Do a Venus flyby, get a speed boost, get on the right heading, and it reduces the amount of propellant you need to bring with you, which reduces the size of your vehicle, which reduces your launch weight, which reduces the size of the launch vehicle that you need to use. Moving on to number 2, whose probability Dr. Loeb rates as 1 chance in 20,000. The arrival time of 3i Atlas was fine-tuned to bring it within tens of millions of kilometers from Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, and be unobservable from Earth at perihelion. In other words, if this is all natural happenstance, the close flybys of Mars, Venus, and Jupiter are quite a serendipitous coincidence. And if it's an alien probe, they're not nearly as interested in Earth as we might like them to be, so let's try to not have a planetary crisis of self-confidence over it. Here's number 3, which he rates as a probability in the neighborhood of 1 in 1,000. The nucleus of 3i Atlas is roughly 1,000,000 times more massive than 1i Oumuamua and 1,000 times more massive than 2i Borisov, while moving faster than both. There is not enough rocky material in interstellar space to deliver a rock of this mass once per decade to the inner solar system. This suggests that 3i Atlas may have targeted the inner solar system rather than was drawn at random from the reservoir of interstellar rocks. 1i Oumuamua and 2i Borisov, of course, are the 2 previous interstellar interlopers we've detected since we gained the ability to detect such things around a decade ago. And here's the case where the mainstream astronomical authorities were rather wildly wrong in their prognostications, because nobody was expecting 3 of these things per decade. The predictions were mostly along the lines of 1 per century. Here's number 4, which Dr. Loeb gives the same probability, 1 in 1,000 or thereabouts. During July and August, as well as through November of 2025, 3i Atlas displayed a sunward jet anti-tail that is not an optical illusion from geometric perspective, unlike thousands of known comets. The high-rise image taken at closest approach of 3i Atlas to Mars confirmed a glowing extension ahead of 3i Atlas along the direction of motion. For a technological object, a beam of light or particles might be used to mitigate the risk from micrometeorites or rocks that could impact its surface at a relative speed on the order of 60 kilometers per second and release 1,000 times more energy per unit mass than explosives. So here he's postulating that there might be some sort of Star Trek-style deflector dish device being employed, which, again, is a bit too esoteric for my liking. My preference would be to ascribe it to some unknown natural process that occurs in interstellar objects by a mechanism we've never observed and don't yet understand. Number 5, same probability, 1 in 1,000. The gas plume surrounding 3i Atlas contains much more nickel than iron, as found in industrially produced nickel alloys, and a nickel to cyanide ratio that is orders of magnitude larger than for thousands of known comets, including 2i Borisov. This might indicate an artificial origin of these unusual abundances. This is an interesting observation and certainly worthy of investigation, but I don't know how you assign a probability to it when you've only got a sample size of 3. Maybe the neighborhood where this thing originated just has an unusually high amount of nickel. And besides, I am not a geologist or a metallurgist. I understand astrophysics better than I understand all that stuff, so I'm going to refrain from commenting further. Here's number 6, probability 1 in 500. The retrograde trajectory of 3i Atlas is aligned to within 5 degrees with the ecliptic plane of the planets around the Sun. This suggests that the trajectory might have been designed. In other words, whereas Oumuamua and Borisov approached from a much steeper upward angle and didn't make close approaches to any objects in our solar system except the Sun, This guy comes in from a much flatter trajectory that enables it to do close flybys of Venus, then Mars, then Jupiter, in addition to the Sun, which, if it's a coincidence, it's a pretty fun coincidence. Dr. Loeb then lists 2 of what he calls medium anomalies, whose probability he rates as 1 in 167 and 1 in 100, respectively. And I will just read these out with no further comment because I don't think they're all that interesting. Number 1. 3I Atlas arrived from a direction coincident with the radio WOW signal to within 9 degrees. Number 2. 3I Atlas shows extreme negative polarization unprecedented for all known comets, including 2I Borisov. This unusual polarization may be related to its unusual anti-tail. He then lists 5 minor anomalies, which he assigns a probability of around 1 in 10. I will read them all, but I only want to comment on number 4. Number 1. The gas plume surrounding 3I Atlas contains only 4% water by mass, a dominant constituent of familiar solar system comets. The plume might have resulted from the sunlight releasing the ices and dust that accumulated on the surface of a technological object during its journey through the cold interstellar medium. Number 2. Near perihelion 3I Atlas brightened faster than any known comet and was bluer than the sun. This might be a signature that its engine is turned on. Number 3. 3I Atlas exhibits sunward and anti-solar jets which require an unreasonably large surface area for a natural comet in order to absorb enough sunlight needed to sublimate enough ice to feed the mass flux of these jets. The jets might originate from technological thrusters. Number 4. The tightly collimated jets from 3I Atlas maintain orientation across 1 million kilometers in multiple directions relative to the Sun despite its measured rotation. The jets might originate from technological thrusters. Number 5. Near perihelion 3I Atlas exhibits non-gravitational acceleration, which requires massive evaporation for a natural comet, whereas preliminary images indicate that the object maintained its integrity and did not break up. Instead, the acceleration might have been produced by an engine. It's the number 4 item on that list that's been fascinating me since I first heard the reports and saw the images. You've got an object with a measured rotation of 16 revolutions per hour, but it's got jets coming out the back of it whose appearance doesn't seem to change, when they should be smearing and smudging in the images if they are each emanating from a fixed location on a rotating body. In other words, if you had an engine pack that was mounted on a gimbal and designed to maintain its orientation irrespective of the rotation of the larger object, mightn't it look just like that? Dr. Loeb concludes his article as follows, quote, "The probability for the combined occurrence of multiple independent anomalies is the product of their individual probabilities. From the above list, it is apparent that 3I Atlas is an extremely rare and mysterious object, especially if it happens to be a natural comet, as argued by NASA officials at the press conference on 19 November 2025. Which leads me to the hypothesis that I want to throw out there. Not a claim, not a conclusion, just a hypothesis. We have an object that displays some of the characteristics we traditionally associate with cometary bodies, but it displays other characteristics and behaviors for which we don't have a convenient natural explanation. So what if it's a natural object that someone somewhere repurposed into an interstellar space probe? After all, wouldn't that be the most efficient and effective way of exploring interstellar space? And we're not even talking about far future science fiction stuff here. In 100 or 200 years, we might have the capability of doing this very same thing. It might not even be all that difficult for us. Let's say we gain the ability to detect interstellar objects before they enter our solar system. We have spacecraft on call ready to launch when just this scenario presents itself. The spacecraft rendezvous with the object, attaches a gimbal-mounted engine pack onto it, along with a suite of navigational and observational equipment. Electrical power is supplied by radioactive isotope decay, so you've got batteries that won't be exhausted for thousands or millions of years. Propellant for the engines can be manufactured in situ out of the volatile organics the comet is made of. Navigation and observation is carried out by onboard artificial intelligence. Observational and performance data are constantly being dumped back to the home world, though they might take decades or centuries to arrive. When components wear out, they can be self-replicated by 3D printing. Again, this is all stuff that should be easily within our own capability within the next century or two. So it doesn't take a very big flight of fancy to imagine that some other civilization in our galactic neighborhood might already have that capability, or some no longer extant civilization had it in the distant past and its interstellar probes are still out there doing the investigating they were programmed to do. As long as there's still a functioning power supply and the components retain the capability of self-replicating, the onboard AI robot pilots won't have any way of knowing they're dumping their data back to a civilization that died out thousands of years ago. And to the larger utilitarian question, Why build a dedicated artificial interstellar space probe when you can just catch a ride on a natural object that's already traveling at a terrific rate of speed and going in the direction where you want to do your investigating? And more importantly, why should it be considered verboten and taboo to consider possibilities like this, when we're only 100 or 200 years away from being able to do the exact self-same thing? And why should Avi Loeb be made a pariah in the scientific community just for asking questions that aren't really all that unreasonable? The answer is, he shouldn't. If we always defaulted to the consensus of the mainstream scientific authorities, we would still be living in the Middle Ages right now. People thinking outside the conventional box of their academic field is how we learn things and how we make important discoveries. Occam's razor says the simplest explanation is usually the correct one, and that's fine. That's all well and good. Sagan's razor says extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that's fine. That's all well and good. But conversely, how are we supposed to uncover extraordinary evidence if we are forbidden from asking extraordinary questions, and from engaging in extraordinary thought experiments, and from formulating extraordinary hypotheses? After all, isn't that what scientific inquiry is supposed to look like? I'm done. That's all I've got. Thanks very much indeed for watching. Here's wishing everyone a pleasant Thanksgiving weekend. Do feel free to like and subscribe and drop a few coins in the hat if you were so inclined. See you next time. Get off my lawn.